He made a certain group of people feel seen and heard in a way that others didn't. The fact that he ran a tech company, that was what he did, but why he did it was something quite different. So you don't have to have led a big company or a social movement to have had an impact on people's lives where they will literally tell your story and carry your name for the rest of your life.
Do you care what people think of you?
So I made a deal with myself a long time ago. If somebody doesn't like me, basically, if you want to achieve anything in this world, you have to get used to the idea that...
Can we please talk about leadership? You reeled off a few names about half an hour ago. Why were those names in your mind? Why are those considered good leaders by you?
All of them outlived their own lives, meaning that we've forgotten a lot of the people who may have accomplished great things along the way, but for some reason we remember them. And they weren't the only ones doing it. They weren't the ones leading their organizations or their movements. They certainly weren't the first. But there was something about them that sort of inspired people to believe in something bigger than themselves. I mean, when Steve Jobs dies, here's a multi-billionaire who lives a lifestyle that none of us can relate to. And we laid flowers at an Apple shop after he died. What? Right? That's ridiculous. But the only reason we did that is because for some reason we connected with what he stood for. He made a certain group of people feel seen and heard in a way that others didn't. And the fact that he ran a tech company, that was what he did. But why he did it was something quite different. There's a reason why young people and creative people are attracted to that, because he was a rebel. He was an iconoclast. He stood against the status quo. You know, he and Steve Wozniak. And that's what creative people and young people like to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's not an accident. So yeah, all of them outlived their, sort of lived lives that lived on beyond them.
Yeah. So how can we?
And by the way, just as an aside, every one of us has a deceased grandparent, a friend who has passed, who we continue to invoke their names to this day.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to have led a big company or a social movement to have had an impact on people's lives where they will literally tell your story and carry your name for the rest of your life. You know, my grandfather was extremely important to me. And, you know, his name shows up in funny places. You know, I use his name as passwords and, you know, things like that.
So why was he so significant for you then?
So he was completely unique. I mean, he was a complete weirdo. And he sort of, very few people got him. But I saw a side of him and he sort of opened up to me in a way that he didn't open up to other people. And he basically showed me that you have permission to be your own weirdo self, even if other people won't get you.
How did he do that?
He just didn't give a shit what people thought about him. He just cared zero. You know? I remember I was a little kid and there was a politician on TV saying something or other. And my grandfather just sort of, we were watching the news, you know, and my grandfather goes, "I'm not voting for him." And I said, "You don't like his policies?" And my grandfather says, "I don't like his hair." I said, "You can't not vote for somebody because you don't like their hair." And he said, "I can not vote for somebody for any reason I want." And I was like, yeah, I guess. And he just did his own thing. And, you know, he wasn't the most, some people loved him and some people didn't. And he definitely drove my grandmother nuts. But he just did it his way.
Do you care what people think of you?
I care. So I made a deal with myself a long time ago that if somebody doesn't like me, because basically if you want to achieve anything in this world, you have to get used to the idea that not everybody's going to like you. Like, you just have to get used to that. And if you want everybody to like you, and that's inconsistent with making an impact of any sorts, it just doesn't work that way. But I made a deal with myself that if people didn't like me because they disagreed with me, I was okay with that. And if people didn't like me because they were intimidated by something I said or did, or I was okay with that. But if somebody that I respected didn't like me, I have a problem. And that I have to take accountability for, and I'm doing something wrong. And that's sort of the deal I made with myself. And so that goes to this day, you know, like, so if I have friends who won't read the reviews of their books, or won't read them, and I go read them because I find it, because if they're helpful, I want to know. Yeah. So if there's a critical review that explains in a really neat, nicely organized way that where one of the things I wrote faltered or didn't work, I actually like, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point they're making. I'll take that one. you know? Whereas somebody just calls me an idiot or a Neanderthal, like somebody literally called me an idiot. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, this is the worst book I've ever read. I'm like, okay, compared to what? Like, I don't know. That's not helpful to me. Give me something helpful, you know? So bad reviews or bad criticism, like, again, if it's helpful, I really welcome it. But if you're just throwing stones, I actually don't know what to do with it.
So 2025 is well underway, and I bet a lot of you like me have already started to make plans on how this can be the very best year yet. And for me, making it a great year revolves around some investment, but actually investing in myself physically and mentally. So the physical investment has been a sauna that I've just had installed at home, and already I'm absolutely loving it. But the mental investment is making sure that I take time to go travelling with my kids, Flo and Seb and Harriet, my wife, on those kind of memory-making holidays that last a lifetime. But obviously both of those goals centre around needing finance. The good news is, though, that's where our new partner, XTB, comes in. They're dedicated to empowering you on your investment journey, and that's regardless of whether your horizon is short or long term. You can maybe buy stocks and ETFs commission-free. You can invest passively with investment plans, open an ISA account, earn up to 4.75% interest on uninvested funds, and loads more. And the good news is it's so easy using their app. So just download the XTB app today or click the link in the description below to start making your money work for you in 2025.
Well, so how do you choose the people in your circle?
I mean, I don't think it's particularly unique, and I don't think it's any different than anybody else. Like, how do you choose your friends? How do you choose your friends? I make friends like anybody else. You meet somebody, sometimes you're introduced to them, sometimes you meet them somewhere, you get along, you have a nice conversation, you sort of like each other, you go out once, you like each other again, or you don't, and you never talk to each other again, you know? You both let your guards down a little bit, you both open up a little bit, you realize you've got a lot of shared values. I mean, my friends are the same as everybody else's friends, you know? One of the things that I do notice about people, you know, who sort of had some sort of commercial success, especially the ones who had it young, is their guards go up because they live lives. I mean, I had an experience where somebody gave me incredibly bad advice that hurt me. And it was somebody in the inner circle who I work with, a work colleague, who gave me incredibly bad advice that turned out was advice that was serving them, but not me. And it was self-serving advice they gave me. And it was very costly for me. It was very hurtful and painful. And I called up a friend of mine who's been in the public eye since like 20 years old. He's like 60 now, you know? And I said, how do I deal with this? Like, how do you deal with it? He's like, yeah, he says, you're a product now. Like, get used to it. This is like, it never goes away. Like, you're going to live a life where you're not 100% sure. And it's like, I understand why celebrities marry celebrities. You know, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Because when you start to meet people, and I've gotten burned. That's, by the way, one of the things where Leaders Eat Last came from, which is, you know, everybody knows this. When you achieve any kind of commercial success whatsoever, all your jokes are funnier and you're much better looking, right? It's just what happens.
Yeah.
And if you believe it, you're dead. If you believe your own press and you believe all the smoke that people blow, you know, up your ass, then it's going to be a short existence.